All right. All right. Please welcome Chloë Sevigny, Andrew Betzer, Dustin Guy Defa, Gina Telaroli, John Wilson, and Tommy Davis. I should note that if anyone you know wasn't able to get into this screening or into Tuesday's screening, we've added a third screening by popular demand on the 16th. So check our website. Tickets are still available, I believe. All right, hey everyone. First I wanted to provide you all the opportunity to acknowledge anyone you wanted to acknowledge who's present this evening, because there are a lot of friends, family, and collaborators on hand. So feel free to do so now.
Me? Well, my actress, Edie Yvonne, is here, who I'd like to recognize somewhere. She's very small. Where are you, Edie? Oh, there! Oh, she's hiding. Hi. And my producers, Lizzie Nastro and Christina Provozen, are here, who helped me take on this ambitious project. I met a lot of producers, and they were the only two that were like, all right, let's do this. Everyone else is like, oh, you should dial it down. So thank you, guys.
I'd like to acknowledge my wife, who is here, and my actress, Eleanore, is here. My producer, Eric Niari, is here. My DP, Daniel, is here. Another actor who goes by the name of Isadore is here. And all my executive producers in the audience that happened to accidentally hit an extra 0 on Kickstarter and help me out. Yeah.
My cinematographer, Zach, is here. Zach Levy, and then Agos is also in the movie. I don't know if I don't know if anybody else is here, but maybe.
I think there's a bunch of people here. Madeline and Charlie are here, who are the stars, and then Agos is here, Carol's here. I think other people too. Far is here, who helped make the photo album. Yeah. And if you're here and I've forgotten you, there's a lot of light shining on me. So.
I'd like to thank Moni, my DP, Alejandro Mejia, Javier Gonzalez, Laurel, Tori, Olivia. I don't know if you're here, Ryan. I don't know if you're here. And yeah, probably a lot of other people too, but yeah.
Pretty small crew. I think Clark, Filio, and Sharif are both here. So, big players. Back to you, Dan.
All right. I'm eager to open it up to the audience right away and see if you guys have some questions. So who has one? No one. All right, then I can begin. Chloë, you screened first, so we'll start with you. Could you talk about what motivated you to move behind the camera at this stage of your career, and what attracted you to the Paul Bowles story?
Well, I've been obsessed with that story for like 20 years and trying to make a short film of it, and it's just been kind of on the back burner for a long time, and I don't know, just something happened. I think I turned 40 and I was like ready to try something different, and found the confidence somewhere, and wanted to impress a boy, and I just loved all the elements of the story, and I thought it would make a great short film. I think short films are very difficult, like whether to go narrative, whether to go more experimental. It's just such a strange time frame, and I've always been into fantasy and like magical realism, and that was something that I wanted to explore. So, yeah.
And Andrew.
Yes.
Could you Could you say a bit about working with your lead actress, Eleanore Pienta, who's a real force of nature?
Yeah, she is a pistol. Yeah, she was very easy to work with, charming. I don't know, I have nothing but great things to say about her. She's a really good physical actor, physical comedian, and she really brought a lot to it. And even sort of led a few aspects of the film in directions that I didn't really think of myself. But no, she was great, and someone recommended her to me, and then I had sort of been poking around the internet and found her myself. That sounds horrible. And me and my friend converged, and we were just like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. All right, that's it. So there you go.
And Dustin, I guess you're a veteran of this program at this point.
Whoever want to ask question, just pass it to one, and you can see the next one in.
All right. So could you? But there's sort of an interesting connection between this film and your feature film, which people hopefully be able to see soon. Maybe could you just talk a bit about the sort of the production background of this and how it fits in with the rest of your work?
Wait, I don't know. Are you talking about why I made the movie because of the other movie?
Yeah, more or less.
Oh boy. Okay. No, yeah, is that what you're asking? No. Yeah. Well, I shot my feature on 16, and somebody had a whole bunch of stock in their fridge for a very long time, and it was going to be a super great deal. So I just took 2 rolls, and I was going to just do a camera test. But I was like, okay, I'm just going to shoot a short film. So I used the stock to make this, and I only had two rolls to shoot it. So I only did 1 take of everything. But then if you can, there's like a red thing going on some of and that was on 1 roll, so it was screwed up stock, so I didn't use it for my movie, except for I kept it in this movie. Was that your question?
It was the first. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Gina, I mean, I think in watching your film, there's people will assume that there's a autobiographical dimension, and the strong sense of place in the film is linked to precisely that. So maybe could you just talk a bit about that?
Sure. I mean, my aunt didn't die, and I don't have a property to sell, but that is my apartment in the movie, or my house, I guess. And I really love this house. I've lived there for about 2 years, and then the top 2 floors with some roommates. And I happened to read the Sylvia Townsend Warner short story that's about a young woman selling her dead aunt's house. And I kind of thought maybe this was a way for me to kind of document this strange kind of place that I live in that is quickly becoming a thing of the past, which, these crumbling apartments kind of feel very New York. But, I mean, everywhere we look, there's like very stainless steel, like condos going up and things that don't have the charm of lives past or don't have any physical presence of lives past. So I kind of started collecting different pieces and parts of things to kind of fill out that story. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes. So Tommy, what the hell?
I was trying to make a long one, but it was short. Yeah, I don't know.
But
I kind of want to hear more about this one. So.
I should note for those who didn't see your previous short, this one is quite distinct, I think, tonally and maybe in terms of some of the points of reference. And I know you have rather idiosyncratic working methods. Could you just talk a bit about how this film came to be?
This one, I was trying to make something a little longer, but then I wanted to it was all an excuse to do the red-blue scenes, which, oddly enough, I saw like at a production at the Met where they did video in an opera, so I wanted to have some scene where I could do this red-blue flashes, and so I kind of wrote everything around that. And then this is what we have.
John.
Just like what was
No,
wrong?
I was about to get to the question. I mean, have you heard from CBS?
No, I was really worried that I would get some kind of cease and desist before this screening, because I got an email from a lawyer at the People's Court saying that he heard a rumor that this movie existed, even though I've only circulated this privately, to people like Dan. But yeah, I never responded to him. But then I did a little research and I found out that he wrote a book a little while ago called "The Guide to Picking Up Women" in like the early 2000s. That's just like a mini story about a problem I don't have. I think. No, I mean I want to thank Dan and the festival for taking a gamble and risking an empty slot if I couldn't actually show this, because it was a very dark winter and I needed something to do, and I wasn't getting much work, so I made this movie.
Do we have questions in the audience now? Someone? I think they'll bring you a microphone.
Thanks. I have a question for Chloe. I really enjoyed your project. I thought it was really beautiful. I'm really interested in directing adaptation as well, so I'm just wondering if you could talk about some of the challenges that you had directing an adaptation.
Well, I think the most challenging aspect was convincing the Bowles estate to let me do it. They're very protective, and they're also kind of off the grid. So I think, where are they, Christina? Like somewhere in Morocco? Yeah, where? Yes, so they weren't into emailing, and so just even communicating with them, and then selling them the idea, and then of course there could be no monetary gains, and there was just a lot of stipulations. So just getting them on board, I had to send them a lot of visuals, tell them who was going to be involved, and as far as production heads and cinematographer and stuff, and just kind of convincing them was the hardest part. But we got them, so yeah, that happened.
Yeah, you.
Chloe, yes. The Paul Bowles connection influence your musical choices at all?
For those who couldn't hear, the question was whether the Paul Bowles connection influenced the soundtrack choices.
No, my personal connections influenced the soundtrack. Mira Bellotti, who's in this band White Magic, she's a friend of mine, and even before I wrote it, I knew that I would want her to do the soundtrack. And then a friend of mine, Brian DeGraw, was in this band Gang Gang Dance. He came on board to help kind of fill in the other bits. But I went to a lot of friends because, even though it might not look it, we were on a pretty small budget, and music rights can be really expensive, so I was trying to pull favors mostly from friends.
Just to follow up, has the estate seen it, and how did they respond?
I don't know. Have they seen it?
The
Sorry, I'm asking a producer. Yes, they've seen it. Hopefully they like it. They liked it. Sorry, I don't know.
The question was whether the Paul Bowles estate had seen it. Anyone else? Yeah, right here.
CBS, where the other footage. Oh yeah, I guess I'm constantly shooting, and I have all of this material and just looking to fit it to some film. So it's all just stuff I shoot around. I don't know if that was obvious or if it seemed sampled or something like that. But yeah, the cat stuff, one of those is my cats. But thank you. I'm glad you liked it.
I should also note that I believe John's entire body of work is available to stream, well, except for this film, of course.
Yeah, will never be this film.
It's available to stream for free on his website, johnsmovies.com.
Yeah, I got that domain name miraculously in 2014.
Yeah, this question's also for John. I really liked your voiceover, and I was curious, how you wrote it, if it was during the editing stage, and how that process worked for you.
It's a question about John's voiceover and whether he wrote it during editing or.
Thank you. I really don't like my voice, which is why I started narrating everything I do. to get over that. But it's a mix of, I have a very basic idea of what the story is, and then I look at all the footage I have and I see what I'd really like to fit into the film, and then I write for certain clips, but also certain clips like become a bit of, you know, the script as well. So it's always a mix, and it takes, I don't know, a little while to do.
I have to think about that. So many things have happened between then and now. I wrote that into it. And how did I make that happen? It's a secret recipe, trial and error. A lot of just edible aerosols and shit like that from Amazon and just whatever I could find. 80% of it was meant to be consumed by a human. The rest, well, the actress is still alive. Eleanor's still here, so, you know, yeah. Sort of. Trial and error. Yeah. There you go. I'm sorry, did I ever leave out?
He's asking if you included that part in any pitches of the film you made, but you probably didn't have to pitch it to anyone.
Yeah, there wasn't that much pitching. It was kind of just like, all right, you know, we had a couple of the phones, and like she went to go eat it, and she spit it out in the gutter after doing it very politely and nonchalantly spit it out in the gutter, and then we went to go do another take, and the light was on a timer at that spot that I chose, and it like went out. So we were like, fuck, all right, where's our next take? Oops. So but once I heard that crunch on the audio track when I was listening to it in a convenience store, I was like, all right, I think we got it.
It was a good crunch.
It was a damn good crunch. And now I have two more phones sitting in my drawer at work, and if I ever get hungry, I might eat one.
So my good question, I hope, is for Gina and any filmmaker. When she changed the lens at the end, it went to a completely different, it looked like a different time, but it was more in the future. What goes through your mind when you change such a significant part of the photography?
Well, I guess I'm trying to think, like, it's just a choice I made. I don't know what went through my mind, except that the end is supposed to be, I guess, kind of a daydream more. She's dreaming that she grows old in the house. And I don't think anyone needs to get that literally. It's not something that literally anyone has to see in that, because I don't think it's especially clear. But I wanted there to be a shift, and I wanted there to be a change. And I think a really good way to do that is if you change your visual. And I liked the idea of using Super 8 just because the colors were more vivid. And the movie we shot, and we barely color graded it at all. The goal was to kind of have the look of the natural camera. So I wanted something that would contrast with that a little bit. I hope that answers your question.
I have a follow-up question for you, Gina. Because for those of you who are familiar with Gina's other work, I think this is quite distinct from some of the things you've been doing recently. But then there are also some strong continuities, motivated in part by like your passion for classic Hollywood cinema and this kind of this combinatory montage, which is, I think, becoming increasingly specific to your work. So could you just talk a bit about maybe some of the ways in which this is of a piece with everything else that you've been doing lately?
Well, I think all my work, in a weird way, is, I think I direct it more in the edit. I like to collect footage and collect things, and then figure out how they go together, which that, I think, is true for the last section of this a little bit. And the differences here is one of the big collected pieces is, of course, a narrative scene, which we had to shoot much more specifically than I usually do. But I guess, my goal with the end, or what I'd wanted to do, was I have a found footage piece called Silk Tatters, and in it I composited an image of Charlie Chaplin from the Gold Rush, which there's a whole white background on these leaves, and it looks like it's like a super, not very technical composite. It's not like I used After Effects or something. And I kind of became obsessed with the idea that you could, in this very homemade way, put people in different spaces. So I got the idea that I would film Madeline on film and then composite her on the digital. She's right there, by the way, she's great. But then I would put her film image on the digital shot of the stoop. But then, as always happens, we didn't quite shoot it correctly. She wasn't exposed enough to make that work. So I kind of had to shoot some other pieces and put them all together. And then we got the idea to shoot the letters at the end, which are Sylvia Townsend Warner's letters, to kind of show time passing in a different capacity.
Do we have any other questions in the audience? The gentleman with the long hair in the back.
Tommy, I'm not going to let you off the hook. The film's edited down almost to the point of abstraction. Like you can barely grasp the narrative. And I was curious, was the process for you, did you start with a much longer edit and bring it down to this? Or did you know when you were going into the edit that you were going to go for this extremely clipped, abstract style of presenting the narrative?
No, the truth is it wasn't supposed to be long. It was actually supposed to be like a little less than 2 minutes. And then it stretched out to 3 minutes and 30 seconds. But it was supposed to be super concise and just hit the notes and get out with a run. Yeah, I was just trying to deliver quite a bit within a 2 minute, 3 minute time span, and then just let it exhale for 20 seconds. So, thanks.
I have a question for Dustin. So you're in the film, your film, at least orally, and I'm curious. I'm sure some people would wonder to what degree do you think that the director character within the film is a caricature of you, or whether it's kind of like a composite of various stereotypes of male directors, I suppose.
Yeah, it's pretty stereotypical, I would say, and sort of silly. I think about sometimes my own relationship to the male gaze and all this, and how I've worked with actresses before, and if I've ever really been very different with them than with the male actors. The character in the movie is it's silly mostly, but certainly I thought about I thought about like Blue is a Woman's Color or something like that. I like that movie a lot, but it's especially like that last shot. That's all Blue is the Warmest Color kind of feeling. So I thought about myself and other male directors.
Mm-hmm. Do we have any final questions right here? It's a question for Tommy about the location of the film and how he found it and its centrality to the film.
Yeah, the location, the whole film was dependent if I could find it, and there wasn't much money for it, so it had to be around here. So it took like 4 months to find it, and then of course it was the second place I visited, and I was like, I can make this work. But yeah, it was southern New Jersey. Atlantic City was just to the right.
I think we should call it a day and leave it there. So, thank you guys.